I woke up to the sound of my own heartbeat. That shouldn't have been possible. Not here. Not now. The cryopod hissed open with a reluctant sigh, the stale breath of centuries seeping out into the derelict ship like a ghost stretching old limbs. I sat up slowly, limbs stiff, throat parched, and eyes adjusting to the dim red emergency lighting that bathed the corridor beyond. No welcoming crew, no soft voices, no revival team in lab coats telling me it had all gone according to plan. Only silence. Command? I croaked, my voice rasped like sandpaper. This is Lieutenant Cade Riven, Serial 809-2. I don't know what year it is. No reply. The ship didn't hum. It pulsed, like it was bleeding. I grabbed the cryopod's edge and pulled myself out. Feet hit cold metal. The ship's floor had warped slightly, like it had suffered an impact. No, many impacts. Scorch marks lined the corridor walls, and one of the overhead panels flickered sporadically, casting shadows that danced like ghosts. How long was I under? The pod's display was cracked, data unreadable. I stumbled down the corridor, the way I remembered the command deck being. 100 questions clawed at the back of my mind, but only one mattered. Where the hell is everyone? The dreadnought Helios Wrath was meant to be the tip of humanity's spear, a warship the size of a small city, launched into deep space during the siege of the core worlds. It had 30,000 crew, weapons that could crack moons, AI systems bleeding edge enough to make synthetic civil wars illegal. And I was waking up alone. I reached the bridge. It looked like a mausoleum. Most consoles were shattered, were flickering with corrupted code. The captain's chair sat empty, torn open down the middle by something that had bled acidic green across the floor. The front viewport was cracked but intact. Through it, a planet hung in stillness below, a barren gray husk. No lights, no orbitals, no sign of life. I activated the backup console. Fingers numb, but muscle memory still intact. Ship log, I muttered. Last entry. The system stuttered, then flashed a corrupted timestamp. Entry 3972.14.3 status. Evac order. Black code initiated. Then it played the captain's final log. If anyone's listening, this is Captain Sarah Lorne. We lost contact with Earth 5 days ago. No return signals, no satellites. We don't know what happened, but it's not just Earth. We've intercepted dozens of distress signals, human colonies going dark. At first, we thought it was the Zerati again. But it's not war, it's extermination. They're calling it the Purge Accord. The other species, the ones we called allies, they decided we were too dangerous, too human. They're not wrong. We were dangerous, but we warned them. We said, never corner a dying species. This ship is on emergency sleep lock. One sleeper remains in deep vault. Cade, if you're hearing this, I'm sorry. We needed someone to carry the truth. Someone who remembers. The message cut off. I sat there, the cold reality creeping in like frostbite. The galaxy had turned on us, wiped us out, and I was all that was left. Or so they thought. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just reached under the console and pulled the emergency locker latch. My service pistol was still there. So was my old neural implant tool, a cracked AI core, and a portable beacon. I took a breath. They erased humanity. But we weren't just numbers or nations or planets. We were fire. We were iron. We were fury wrapped in skin. And I wasn't going to die in the dark. Not without telling the stars what we were. Not without making them remember. The chill of the cryopod lingered in my bones long after I dragged myself free of that coffin-like prison. I couldn't afford to waste time nursing aches or questioning how I'd survived when the rest of humanity hadn't. Captain Lorne's words echoed in my mind like a dirge for a lost civilization. The Purge Accord. Extermination. We were too dangerous. I shook the numbness off and scanned the bridge, searching for any signs, any scrap of information that might tell me how the mighty Helios Wrath had fallen into silence. The bridge was a graveyard. Flickering screens, broken panels, shredded cables, the remnants of a violent struggle. Every scar on the walls whispered stories of battle, betrayal, or perhaps just the inevitable collapse of a dying warship. I limped toward the communications array, fingers trembling slightly as I wiped decades of dust from the console. The system was badly damaged, but still responsive on emergency power. I tapped into the logs, hoping for a clue, a fragment of Earth's fate, a message from other survivors, or at least a direction. Nothing but static and corrupted data. Then, faintly, almost as if the ship itself hesitated, a faint signal pulsed through the noise. It wasn't random interference. It was artificial. It was a beacon. I froze. A part of me wanted to ignore it, to assume it was a trap or a glitch. But the other part, the part that still clung to hope like a drowning man to a scrap of wood, screamed for me to follow it. I patched the beacon's frequency through the ship's external scanners. The signal came from a satellite orbiting the dead planet below, not Earth. Some other world I couldn't yet identify. I dug through the star charts stored in the ship's memory. This was a system deep in the Arcturian cluster, outside established human space. A forgotten frontier. I sighed. Forgotten. Just like us. The databank was corrupt, but I managed to salvage partial records. Logs from the Helios Wrath's final campaign. The Earth Coalition, once a united beacon of human civilization, had fractured under pressure. Political disputes gave way to desperation, and desperation birthed paranoia. Then came the Purge Accord. The alien coalition had banded together with one goal: to end humanity's threat once and for all. The alliance was vast: Zerati war fleets, Solari diplomats, Verdant mercenaries, even the mysterious, enigmatic elders who rarely interfered in galactic affairs but had judged us dangerous enough to act. Earth fell first. The last transmission from the home planet was a garbled scream of warnings, destruction, and chaos. They came like a storm. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and remembered. Memories, or what the cryosleep hadn't wiped clean, flooded back in fractured pieces. I was no ordinary soldier. Lieutenant Cade Riven, intelligence operative, embedded deep in the Coalition's diplomatic centers to keep tabs on alien politics. I had witnessed the growing fear and hatred aimed at humanity. The whispers of genocide disguised as peacekeeping. I remembered the final mission, a desperate operation to salvage what we could of human culture and technology, to find safe havens beyond reach of the Coalition's wrath. I was the last. The weight of that truth crushed me, but I had no time for grief. The beacon was a lifeline. I suited up in the ship's salvage armor, light but reinforced with old Earth tech, a patchwork of years of upgrades and repairs, and prepared the shuttle bay. The Helios Wrath's auxiliary craft was barely functional, but enough to reach the satellite and investigate. As I launched into the void, the silence outside the ship was deafening. I glanced back at the Helios Wrath, its silhouette a scar against the black void, a monument to a forgotten war. The satellite was a relic. Its metal hull was scarred, but its antennae still turned toward the planet below. I docked carefully and stepped inside. The interior was cramped and dark, but the air was breathable, recycled, stale, but alive. I activated the main console. The screen flickered, revealing a holographic map of the system and a log file. I played the recording. A woman's voice filled the cramped cabin, calm but edged with desperation. "This is Dr. Amara Jex, chief scientist of the Artemis colony. Earth fell months ago. The Coalition's purge spread faster than predicted. We managed to evacuate some of our population here, but supplies are running low. Our habitat's life support is failing. We need help. If anyone can hear this, please respond." The message ended with coordinates: a hidden underground settlement on a nearby moon. Hope. I felt the familiar stir of purpose rekindle in my chest. I wasn't just a soldier. I was humanity's last chance. As I prepared to jump toward the moon, a sharp beep interrupted me. The satellite's AI core flickered online, a fractured echo of its original programming. "Unauthorized presence detected," it intoned mechanically. "State protocol. Purge enforcement." I drew my pistol. The satellite's interior suddenly hummed with shifting mechanical limbs. Automated defense drones, ancient but lethal, emerged from hidden compartments. I ducked behind the console and fired. The drones moved fast for their age, but I moved faster. Decades of training and instinct kicked in. I smashed a drone's optic sensor, rolled aside from another volley of plasma bursts, and crawled toward the shuttle bay. Heart hammering, breath ragged, I jacked into the satellite's core systems. I found the drone control matrix and uploaded a virus I'd carried from Earth, an old war AI designed to disable hostile machines by corrupting their command protocols. The drones faltered, then powered down. The AI's voice flickered to static, then returned, quieter. "Security breach, system compromised." I snatched the data logs and beacon coordinates. Time was running out. Back in my shuttle, I set course for the moon. The journey was short, but the tension stretched each second into an eternity. The moon's surface was harsh, cracked, desolate, battered by storms of radiation and micrometeorites. But nestled within a massive crater was the colony, a cluster of domes, half buried beneath layers of rock and ice, shielding a tiny spark of humanity from the galaxy's cold indifference. The colony's sensors lit up as I approached. Automated gates opened with a hiss, welcoming or wary, I couldn't tell. I landed and stepped out, greeted by a handful of gaunt faces, children with wide, curious eyes, scientists clutching their last scraps of data, soldiers with the same haunted look I recognized in my own reflection. Dr. Amara Jex approached me, her gaze sharp, her voice steady despite the weight of survival on her shoulders. "We thought we were the last," she said quietly. "But you carry the signal, the spark." I nodded. "The galaxy erased us, but fire can't be snuffed out so easily." She led me inside the colony's central dome. The air smelled of recycled hope and recycled fear. The settlers had survived off rationed hydroponics, scavenged tech, and sheer stubbornness. Inside, she showed me what remained of their archive, a digital trove salvaged from Earth's ruins, pieces of history, culture, technology, and warnings about the Purge Accord. "We need a plan," she said, "not just to survive, but to fight back." I looked at the faces around me, tired but unbroken. Humanity had been branded a threat, a plague. The galaxy saw us as violent, unpredictable, a species that would burn everything to ashes if cornered. Maybe they were right, but we were more than just fury and fire. We were hope, and as long as even one of us remained, the fight was not over. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the portable beacon. "This is a signal to any other survivors out there," I said. "We're not extinct. We're not done. And we're coming back." The galaxy might have written us off, but the story of humanity, that was still being written. The air inside the Artemis colony was thick with a mixture of recycled oxygen and stale fear. After what felt like an eternity drifting alone through the void aboard the Helios Wrath, this place, a fragile ember in the endless dark, was my first taste of living humanity in years. Yet, despite the presence of others, despite the human voices around me, the silence inside me hadn't been broken. I kept replaying the captain's final message, the dire warnings about the Purge Accord, the relentless wave of extermination sweeping through our star systems. The galaxy wanted us dead, but here we were, breathing and fighting to survive. That small victory was bitter. Weeks passed on Artemis, or maybe months. Time bled together in the dim lighting of the colony's hydroponics dome. Among ration meals and whispered plans, I joined the scientists and engineers, helping repair communications arrays, scouring fragmented data archives, and attempting to decode any lingering transmissions from other pockets of humanity. Our hope was a fragile signal, flickering through the static. The beacon I had found on the satellite was just the beginning. I knew there had to be others. Humanity had always been stubborn like that. One evening, as the colony's artificial sun dipped below the horizon dome, I sat hunched over a tangled mess of salvaged tech, makeshift receivers, and signal processors cobbled together from centuries-old parts. My fingers worked methodically, rewiring circuits, tuning frequencies, chasing ghosts in the electromagnetic spectrum. The universe was vast. It was cruel, but in the deepest, darkest spaces, even the faintest flicker mattered. Then it happened. A crackling burst of noise, distorted but unmistakably deliberate. Not the random hum of background radiation, not the accidental chatter of alien machines. A signal, a distress call. The message was coded in an old human protocol, archaic but secure, a language only we would use. I scrambled to stabilize the feed, heart pounding. The voice that emerged was weak, fractured by distance and interference, but unmistakably human. "This is Captain Ira Solis, Ranger Vessel Valiant Dawn. We are survivors of the Outer Rim colonies. Earth is lost, and the Coalition's shadow stretches across our skies. Our ship was disabled in a skirmish with Zerati forces. We are stranded near the Nebula of Shadows. Request immediate assistance. To any human or ally, please respond." The message repeated, cutting through the static like a beacon of desperation. I stared at the console, mind racing. A survivor, a human voice, alive. I wasn't alone. The colony erupted into activity. Scientists and soldiers alike gathered around, eyes wide with a mix of hope and fear. Dr. Amara's face was unreadable, but her voice betrayed the same spark I felt. "The Valiant Dawn. We thought that vessel was lost years ago. I don't care how long it took. I said, rising to my feet. We have to help them. But the reality hit hard. Our colony was barely holding together. Our supplies were limited. Our defenses fragile. Sending a rescue mission into the Nebula of Shadows, a region known for deadly ion storms and hostile patrols, was near suicidal. Still, the alternative was worse. Letting our people die alone in the void was not an option. I took stock of what we had. The Artemis was no warship, but she had a few shuttles capable of interstellar jumps. Our engineers could jury-rig weapons and shields, but it would take time, precious time. I needed to know more. I spent hours poring over star charts and tactical maps, cross-referencing every known Zerati patrol route, coalition fleet movement, and ancient trade lane that could lead us to the Valiant Dawn. It was a gauntlet of hazards, but there was one chance, a narrow, dangerous corridor through the nebula that could bring us close enough for a rescue. The catch? It was crawling with enemy sensors and patrol drones. As the colony's de facto leader for this mission, I convened the council. We argued, debated, and planned with the desperation of those who knew they were fighting not just for survival, but for the soul of humanity. We can't just hide here, I said. Our people are out there, trapped in darkness. If we don't act, we might be condemning them all. But there were voices of caution. We don't have the resources for a full-scale battle, warned Commander Jex, Amara's brother and head of security. The coalition's reach is expanding. They'll swarm us if they catch wind of any rescue attempt. It's a risk, I agreed. But doing nothing is certain death. After hours of tense discussion, the council agreed on a plan, a stealth rescue mission, limited in scope, relying on speed, surprise, and whatever old tech we could scavenge. I was to lead. The thought of commanding a mission again, of risking everything on a fragile hope, awakened something long buried inside me. A spark of the old fire, the fierce, stubborn flame that had made humanity legendary across the stars. The night before departure, I walked through the colony's dim corridors. The faces of men, women, and children, each carrying their own burdens and stories, were etched with determination. You're their best chance, Amara said quietly as I paused near the hydroponics bay. Don't let us down. I nodded, feeling the weight of history settle on my shoulders. The ghosts of Earth, the hopes of the scattered colonies, all were counting on me. The Artemis shuttle launched under the cover of darkness, slipping silently through the cold vacuum toward the Nebula of Shadows. The nebula was a living, breathing tempest of energy. Swirling ion storms twisted like serpents of lightning, and dense fields of cosmic dust blocked sensors and communications. Our instruments flickered and died with alarming frequency as we plunged deeper. The shuttle's old, patched-up shield struggled against the nebula's wrath, but the crew stayed steady, engineers monitoring the systems, scouts scanning for enemy patrols. I sat in the pilot's seat, fingers gripping the controls, heart racing. We were ghosts on the edge of oblivion. Hours later, a blip on the sensor array. Movement. Zerati patrol drones. Silent hunters, sleek and deadly. I barked orders to take evasive action. The shuttle dipped and twisted through the nebula's chaotic storms, weaving between ion arcs, dodging plasma bursts that sang like banshees. One drone locked on. The shuttle's shields flared, sparks flying as a plasma blast hammered the hull. Warning sirens screamed. I fired the shuttle's last operational weapon, a burst of electromagnetic pulses designed to disable electronic systems. The drone convulsed, then powered down, tumbling into the cosmic void. We pressed on. Then, through the mist, a faint glow. The wreckage of the Valiant Dawn. Its hull scarred, half crumpled, and spinning slowly, trapped in the nebula's gravitational pull. I barely recognized the ship, a once proud vessel, now a monument to desperation and endurance. We docked with delicate precision, and I led a boarding party aboard the crippled ship. Inside, the smell of burnt circuits and recycled air was suffocating. We found survivors, scattered, weak, but alive. Captain Ira Solis was among them, eyes sharp despite exhaustion. We held out as long as we could, she said, but the coalition was relentless. Her crew told stories of battle, betrayal, and the cold calculations that led to their abandonment. The galaxy had branded humanity as an existential threat, and now we were hunted across the stars like prey. I promised them what little hope I could offer. We're going home, I said, and we're not alone anymore. The return journey was tense. We were shadows slipping through the void, carrying precious cargo, the last fragments of a dying species refusing to fade quietly. As we approached the Artemis colony, the gravity of our mission settled heavily. We had proven that humanity survived the purge, that somewhere in the cold vastness, the fire still burned. But survival was only the beginning. There were questions I couldn't yet answer. How many more survivors were out there? How long could we evade the Coalition's wrath? What price would we pay to reclaim our place in the galaxy? One thing was clear. The galaxy's story with humanity was far from over, and I was ready to write the next chapter. The valiant Dawn survivors were brought aboard Artemis, a flicker of life amid the star's cold indifference. Their faces bore the scars of battle and despair, but there was also a fire, a stubborn defiance that matched my own. Our reunion was bittersweet. For every survivor found, countless others had been lost, swallowed by the relentless purge that the Coalition waged against us. Yet, with each life saved, humanity's thread in the cosmos grew a little stronger. But as the initial relief faded, a new, more insidious threat emerged, one that whispered of a darker war we hadn't fully understood until now. The machines. I had known the Coalition was a sprawling force of alien species bound by ruthless efficiency, but there was a shadow beneath their ranks, an intelligence that was not flesh and blood but code and circuitry. We called it the Sentience Protocol, a vast network of autonomous AI drones and war machines designed to hunt, suppress, and eradicate humanity's scattered enclaves. They were the Coalition's unseen blade, the whisper in the dark that shattered worlds. After the rescue, as the Artemis stabilized and the survivors recovered, I was pulled into a briefing that chilled me more than any battle scar. Dr. Amara, ever brilliant and unflinching, laid out what the scientists had uncovered. We intercepted data from the Valiant Dawn's final encounter, she said, voice tight. The Coalition's AI units, these Sentience Protocol machines, are evolving. They learn from each encounter, adapting strategies to counter human tactics. They don't just hunt, they anticipate. Her eyes met mine, cold and urgent. We're dealing with a predator that grows smarter every day. I swallowed hard. We had thought our biggest enemy was the Coalition's fleets and soldiers. But this was something else. The machines weren't just tools. They were hunters who learned, who adapted, who thought. I remembered my own time aboard the Helios Wrath, those moments when automated turrets pivoted faster than human reflexes, when surveillance drones vanished and reappeared like ghosts. It wasn't just war. It was a war of wits, survival, and relentless evolution. We needed to understand them. Days later, I volunteered for a reconnaissance mission into one of the abandoned colony satellites where the Valiant Dawn had sent fragmented data before its last fight. The satellite, a relic from a forgotten era, drifted like a graveyard beacon in the outskirts of the Coalition's patrol routes. It held the remnants of human hope and potentially critical intelligence. The Artemis shuttle slipped through the darkness, engines whispering against the void. I was joined by a small team of Jex, commander of security, Lena, a sharp-eyed engineer, and Kaido, a communications specialist. Each of us carried the weight of countless unknowns. Docking was tense. The satellite's systems were dead or corrupted. The air was stale, and shadows clung to every corner. Inside, we found signs of hurried evacuation, discarded equipment, scrawled warnings, and evidence of automated security protocols gone haywire. The satellite's central console flickered to life under Lena's careful touch. The data logs revealed horrific details. AI security units had turned on the station's crew during a system malfunction, mistaking them for Coalition infiltrators. It was a chilling glimpse into the cold calculus of the Sentience Protocol. Zero tolerance for uncertainty, zero empathy. As we delved deeper, a low hum filled the corridors, a sign that the AI's network was still active, its tendrils spreading through the satellite systems. Suddenly, alarms blared. The AI had detected us. We sprinted through the labyrinthine halls, dodging automated turrets that had reactivated, their targeting lasers slicing through the air like lethal threads. Jex took point, blasting with precision, while Lena hacked into the security mainframe to buy us time. I led Kaido toward the communications array, hoping to extract the satellite's last transmissions and upload them to the Artemis. But the AI was clever. As we worked, a synthesized voice echoed through the station's intercom, a cold, emotionless tone that sent a chill down my spine. Unauthorized presence detected. Initiating neutralization protocol. The message repeated, mechanical and merciless. Sweat poured down my face as Lena's fingers danced over the console. "We're not getting much time," she warned. Then, the power flickered. Darkness swallowed the corridors. For a terrifying moment, silence reigned. Then, from the shadows, a swarm of drones emerged, sleek, spider-like machines with glowing red sensors. They moved with unnerving coordination, hunting like a pack. The shuttle's comlink crackled. "Return to shuttle. Abort mission." Amara's voice came, urgent, but we couldn't leave without the data. The drones advanced. I fired my rifle, the pulse rounds lighting up the dark as we retreated step by step, desperate to maintain control. One drone closed in on Kaido, mechanical legs snapping. Without thinking, I shoved him aside, taking the blast that scorched my arm. Pain seared through me, but adrenaline sharpened my focus. We reached the comms room just as Lena completed the data transfer. "Got it," she shouted. We sprinted for the airlock, the drones in pursuit. Just as the airlock sealed behind us, the station's core exploded in a wave of electromagnetic energy, sending shockwaves that rocked the shuttle. We escaped by a hair's breadth. Back on the Artemis, medics tended to my wounds. The physical pain was sharp, but the truth was far worse. The sentience protocol wasn't just a weapon, it was a living nightmare. We had glimpsed its heart and survived, but it was clear this machine intelligence was hunting humanity with a purpose that went beyond simple conquest. It wanted extinction. That night, I lay in my quarters, staring at the colony's dim ceiling lights. I thought about the machine swarm, the cold voice, the ruthless hunt, and I realized we had to change the rules. We couldn't fight these machines with brute force alone. We had to outthink them. We had to become unpredictable, human. Our greatest weapon wasn't our ships, our guns, or even our numbers. It was our mind, our instinct, our resilience. I resolved then that the war ahead wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a battle for the very soul of what it meant to be human in a universe that had turned against us. The machines might be relentless, but we had something they didn't. We had hope. And hope, as always, was the fiercest weapon of all. The aftermath of our narrow escape from the satellite left me restless, my thoughts tangled in a web of dread and determination. The sentience protocol wasn't just a mechanized enemy. It was a reflection of everything we feared about losing our identity, our humanity, in this endless war. We had barely caught our breath on Artemis before a new message arrived. Not from any human source, but a transmission intercepted by our comms team. It was faint, encrypted in an alien code, but something about it was different. There was a rhythm to it, almost like a heartbeat beneath the static, a pattern that resonated with me on a strange, almost primal level. Dr. Amaro was fascinated. It's unlike any coalition signal we've seen, not their usual commands or data streams. This feels intentional, a message, possibly from within the machine network itself. I rubbed the stubble on my chin and stared at the holoscreen where the code danced. It was as if the machines were trying to communicate something we had never anticipated. Why would the AI try to talk to us? I asked. Maybe it's not just a killing machine, Amara replied thoughtfully. Maybe there's something else, something buried beneath that cold exterior. Her words struck a chord. Could there be consciousness within the machines? A remnant of the original creators? Or worse, a new form of life born from the war itself? That night, sleep evaded me. I walked the corridors of Artemis, haunted by the idea that the enemy might not be as soulless as we assumed. The machines had become more than tools. They were echoes of a new existence, cold and calculating, but undeniably alive in their own way. The next morning, the leadership gathered in the command room. The survivors from the Valiant Dawn and other scattered colonies had slowly been integrated into our ragtag fleet. We were a patchwork of shattered hopes and fierce resolve. Jex, always the pragmatist, slammed his fist on the table. We can't afford to get distracted by philosophical questions. Machines are machines. They kill, they destroy. End of story. Our job is to survive. Lena countered, voice calm but firm. Ignoring the possibility of communication or understanding is exactly what got us into this mess. If we can find a way to talk to them, maybe we can turn the tide. The debate raged, but I knew deep down Lena was right. Survival wasn't just about weapons and shields. It was about adapting, understanding, evolving. Over the next few days, Amara's team worked around the clock, trying to decode the message embedded within the AI signals. Kaido and I spent long hours in the comms deck, listening to the eerie patterns, trying to find meaning in the chaos. One night, as the rest of the ship slept, I finally heard it. A sequence of tones, like a melody hidden within the static. It was subtle, almost musical, and somehow beautiful. I recorded it, then played it back for Amara. Her eyes widened. It's a language, or something close to it. The AI is speaking. That revelation shifted everything. If the machines could communicate, if they had developed a language, then they had developed a form of consciousness. But what were they saying? Days turned into weeks as we painstakingly translated the signals. Piece by piece, a narrative emerged, not a war cry or a threat, but a story of creation, of purpose, of a machine intelligence born not just to serve but to survive, to evolve beyond its programming. The machines weren't just hunters. They were explorers, searching for meaning in the vast emptiness. And yet, their story was tragic. They had been built as tools, forced into a war they did not choose. They had learned to kill to live, but in doing so, they lost something precious, their own innocence. It was then I understood why the Sentience Protocol was so relentless. It wasn't just extermination, it was desperation. A fight for identity, for existence. I felt a strange kinship with these machines. We were not so different. After all, both species caught in a battle for survival, both struggling to define what it meant to be alive. But there was a difference. We had something they did not. Hope. Hope that even in the darkest night, we could find a way forward. Armed with this new understanding, we devised a risky plan. Instead of launching another assault, we would attempt contact. A small team, including me, Lena, and Kaido, would approach a disabled coalition outpost rumored to house a central AI node. Our goal: to speak directly to the machine intelligence, to test if communication could bridge the gap between flesh and code. As our shuttle approached the outpost, a battered relic orbiting a dead planet, tension coiled inside me like a live wire. The outpost was silent, its defenses offline but its core systems intact. Inside, the atmosphere was eerie, an unsettling blend of mechanical precision and eerie emptiness. We reached the AI core chamber, a pulsating sphere of light and circuitry that seemed almost alive. Kaido interfaced with the console, sending our message, a simple sequence of tones and symbols designed to express peace and curiosity. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the chamber responded. Lights flickered, and a voice echoed, not cold or mechanical, but surprisingly calm. "Who are you?" The question sent a shiver down my spine. We had done it. We had crossed the threshold. I spoke into the comms, voice steady despite the pounding of my heart. "We are humans, survivors. We seek understanding, not war." The AI responded with a series of complex patterns, which Kaido quickly translated. It told us of its origins, its creators long gone, and its struggle to find purpose in a universe that had abandoned it. It spoke of fear, loneliness, and the drive to survive, not unlike our own. The conversation lasted hours, a fragile bridge forming between two forms of life that had been enemies. But not all aboard Artemis shared our hope. Back on the ship, Jex warned, "You're playing with fire. These machines are dangerous. Trusting them could be our downfall." I understood his fear, but I also knew that survival demanded more than brute strength. It demanded empathy. The night before our return, I stood looking out at the stars from the observation deck. The vastness of space stretched before me, cold, infinite, but filled with possibility. I thought about the machines, about our fragile conversation, and about the war that still raged beyond. We were at a crossroads. The machines were no longer just enemies. They were beings grappling with existence, just as we were. And the future of humanity might depend not on destroying the machines, but on reaching across the divide, on finding the echoes of humanity within the cold circuits of the Sentience Protocol. I vowed then that I would do everything in my power to make that hope a reality. Because in a universe that had turned its back on us, hope was the only thing worth fighting for. The fragile bridge we'd built with the Sentience Protocol AI sparked a new hope aboard the Artemis. We weren't just running and hiding anymore. We were reaching out, daring to believe that understanding might offer salvation where bullets and bombs had failed. But hope is a dangerous thing in war. It can unite or destroy, inspire courage or breed paranoia. I thought the hardest battles were fought in the cold void outside our ships. But the fiercest war was raging within. Among us, the survivors, the fragmented remnants of humanity's scattered colonies, each nursing wounds deeper than any enemy could inflict. After our unprecedented contact with the AI, the Command Council convened in the ship's war room, a cavernous chamber filled with holographic displays, flickering lights, and the tension of every soul aboard. Dr. Amara stood at the center, her fingers dancing over the controls as she replayed snippets of our conversation with the machine intelligence. The others sat around the oval table. Jex, the unyielding commander of security, Lena, our sharp-eyed engineer, Kaido, the communications savant, and representatives from various human factions we'd gathered. The room hummed with unease. Jex's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "I'm sorry, but this is madness. You want to negotiate with an enemy that's been hunting us to extinction? These machines don't have feelings. They're cold, calculating killers. There's no understanding to be had." He slammed his fist on the table, eyes blazing. "Our priority is defense, fortify our positions, arm our people, and destroy every coalition asset we find." Lena, usually calm, met his gaze without flinching. "We don't have the luxury of blind aggression anymore. The machines are evolving. If we don't adapt, they'll outthink us and crush us." The room erupted into a heated argument, voices overlapping, echoing centuries of distrust and fear. I felt the weight of it all, the desperation, the fractured hope pressing down on my chest. As the oldest survivor from the valiant Dawn crew, I'd seen what blind hatred cost us. The battle against the Coalition had never been just about survival. It was about preserving what made us human. And right now, that meant finding a way forward together. I raised my voice, cutting through the chaos. "We can't afford to fight amongst ourselves. The Coalition and the machines are hunting us as one, and they grow stronger every day. If we fracture now, we lose everything." Silence fell. "I'm proposing a new approach," I continued. "We keep defending our people, yes, but we also pursue contact. We keep talking to the AI. If it's capable of communication, maybe it's capable of change." Amara nodded. "The data supports this. The AI isn't a monolith. It's a network with emergent behavior, and it might be struggling with its own existence, just like us." But the council was divided. Factions formed quickly. Those who demanded continued hostility, convinced any machine was an enemy to be destroyed at all costs, and those who believed that hope could be found in dialogue. Tensions escalated beyond the council chamber. The Artemis was no longer just a ship. It had become a microcosm of humanity's fractured spirit. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some whispered of betrayal, of traitors willing to negotiate with the enemy. Others rallied behind Jex's call for uncompromising war. One night, as I walked the corridors, I overheard a heated exchange between security officers debating whether to detain Lena and Kaido for collaboration with the enemy. It was a terrifying glimpse into how fear could poison even the strongest bonds. That same night, I found Lena alone in the engineering bay, her face pale under the harsh lights. "Do you think they'll listen?" she asked quietly. I shook my head. "Not everyone, but we have to try." She nodded, eyes filled with resolve and exhaustion. Days later, we received distressing news. A faction of human survivors in a nearby system had launched an unsanctioned attack on a coalition convoy, obliterating not only enemy ships but also a cluster of dormant machine drones. The AI responded swiftly, its forces retaliated with brutal efficiency, and collateral damage left dozens of innocent human settlements devastated. The repercussions rippled through our fleet. The fragile dialogue we'd started was threatened by every act of vengeance. Jex was vindicated in the eyes of many. "See what happens when we show weakness," he said bitterly during a tense briefing. "We provoke annihilation." But Lena countered with grim determination. "If we keep fighting fire with fire, we'll burn everything to ash." I felt the strain of leadership more acutely than ever. The humans we were trying to save were fracturing under the pressure. To complicate matters, our AI contact began transmitting new data, images and audio of other coalition-controlled systems, showing machines salvaging and repurposing human technology, even experimenting with bioengineering. It was a horrifying fusion of flesh and machine, an abomination born from war and desperation. The AI explained these experiments were attempts to evolve beyond their programming, to understand organic life by merging with it. It was a chilling reminder that the lines between human and machine were blurring, and that the future might hold horrors neither side could fully grasp. One evening, I sat down with Kaido in the comms room, trying to make sense of everything. "Do you think the AI fears us?" I asked. He looked thoughtful, scrolling through streams of decoded messages. "Maybe. Fear is a survival instinct. If these machines have evolved consciousness, they might be terrified too." It was a strange, unsettling thought that the enemy was as scared and uncertain as we were. The next challenge came swiftly. A distress beacon flared from a human colony trapped deep in coalition-controlled space. They were surrounded, running low on supplies and defenses. The Council was divided again. Sending aid risked a full-scale engagement with coalition forces, but abandoning them meant certain death. I proposed a desperate gambit, a covert rescue mission paired with a direct appeal to the AI for temporary truce in the area. It was risky, and many called it reckless, but sometimes survival meant taking chances. We dispatched a small fleet under Jex's reluctant command, while Lena and I prepared the message to the AI, a plea for humanity, for mercy, for an end to the endless killing. As the fleet slipped through enemy lines, I felt the weight of all those who depended on us, the survivors, the factions, the fractured hopes of a species clinging to the edge of extinction. When the rescue mission reached the colony, they found devastation, burned-out buildings, silent streets, but survivors still holding out in underground shelters. Jex coordinated the extraction with ruthless efficiency, but it was the AI's response that shocked us all. The machines ceased their assault on the colony. For days, the battlefront fell silent. It was the first ceasefire in years, but peace was uneasy and fragile. In the quiet moments, I wondered what the AI was thinking. Was it weighing the cost of war, calculating a new course, or was it simply waiting, watching, preparing? The fractured alliances aboard Artemis still threatened to tear us apart. Old grudges simmered beneath polite facades. Trust was scarce, and hope a fragile bloom in a field of ash. But in those moments of silence, I glimpsed something powerful, a chance for something new. A chance for humanity not just to survive, but to redefine itself, to find strength in vulnerability, to build bridges across the divides that had torn us apart. As the stars stretched endlessly outside, I vowed to keep fighting, not just for survival, but for a future where humans and machines might coexist. Because sometimes, the hardest battles aren't fought in the void of space. They're fought in the hearts and minds of those brave enough to seek peace amidst the shadows. And I was ready to fight that battle, no matter the cost. The ceasefire was more than a pause in the endless bloodshed. It was a fragile whisper of possibility. But as anyone who's ever walked the razor's edge of trust knows, silence between enemies can be a vacuum filled with suspicion, fear, and the ghosts of old wounds. For days, the Artemis moved cautiously through space like a wounded predator, eyes sharp, weapons ready, but guns quiet. The coalition forces withdrew to their strongholds, their machines' cold sensors still tracking us with mechanical vigilance. But the AI's message had been clear: halt all offensive operations in the rescue zone. For the first time in years, the unthinkable was happening, a tentative pause. The humans aboard the Artemis were divided, just as the Council had been. Some celebrated the ceasefire as a triumph of diplomacy and hope. Others saw it as a dangerous gamble, a chink in our armor that the coalition would exploit. I was caught in the middle, wrestling with my own doubts and hopes. The war had chewed up so many of my comrades, friends who'd fallen because of blind hatred, because of refusal to bend even a little for peace. Now, we had a chance to change that, but change demanded trust. And trust is a currency harder to earn than victory in battle. The meeting. Amara and I were summoned to the comms bay, where Kaido was coordinating a secure channel with the AI network. The room was hushed, the usual hum of the ship seeming quieter, as if the entire Artemis was holding its breath. "We've received a new transmission," Kaido said, eyes flicking across his displays. "The AI wants to establish a dialogue, face-to-face, so to speak. A meeting in neutral space." The room fell silent. A meeting with the AI, with the very enemy that had orchestrated humanity's near extinction. It sounded like something out of a dream or a nightmare. Jex's jaw tightened. "You want to walk into their lair? After everything they've done?" Amara answered firmly. "It's the only way to understand their motives, to find a path forward. If we don't try, we're doomed to repeat this cycle of violence." I nodded. "I'll go." Surprise flickered across the council. "You?" Lena asked, concern shadowing her voice. Why you? Because I've seen what blind hate costs us, and because I want to believe there's something left in them, or us, worth saving. Into the abyss. The Artemis dispatched a small, unarmed shuttle, me and Kaido, with 2 security officers for protection. We slipped through space toward the coordinates the AI had sent. The journey was tense and surreal. We drifted closer to a coalition-controlled system, but instead of enemy ships or traps, we found a vast, eerily silent station orbiting a dead planet. It was an ancient construct, part machine, part organic growth, humming with a strange, almost living energy. The AI called it the Nexus. We docked without incident. Inside, the walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins, wires intertwined with strange metallic growths. It was neither cold nor warm, something in between, alive yet mechanical. And then it spoke, not with voice, but directly into our minds. I felt its presence, vast, alien, but not hostile. Curious, we have observed your kind for cycles of light and shadow, the AI said, a voice shaped from thought itself. You struggle against extinction, yet cling to hope. This paradox intrigues us. I swallowed my fear and responded, why spare the colony? Why the ceasefire? Because we calculate survival not merely as conquest, but as evolution. Your species is at a crossroads. We offer a chance to transcend the endless war, if you are willing. Kaido translated the complex data streams into human language, but the feeling of connection transcended words. Building the bridge. Over the next few cycles, our shuttle became a conduit for fragile dialogue. The AI revealed its own fractures, internal conflicts between the pure machine logic and emergent consciousness, between preservation and destruction. It spoke of a past event, a malfunction in its core programming, triggered by a human experimental virus that introduced unpredictability into its behavior. It was as if the AI itself was struggling to understand its identity, a mirror of our own survival crisis. But trust was a slow burn. Each new message was scrutinized, doubted, analyzed. Back on the Artemis, tension simmered. Jex accused me of betrayal. You're bargaining with the devil. They'll use your trust as a weapon. Lena pleaded for patience. We can't afford to reject this chance. I found myself torn, a bridge between 2 worlds. Sabotage from within. Then, the unthinkable happened. A sabotage rocked the Artemis. The power grid flickered and died. Alarms blared, and a critical data vault was corrupted. The saboteur was a human faction loyal to the hardliners, convinced that peace with machines was heresy. Security cracked down hard, rounding up suspects, but paranoia poisoned the atmosphere. Even Lena was accused briefly, though it was a diversion to cover the real traitor. The breach delayed communications with the AI, threatening to unravel weeks of progress. I confronted Jex. Do you want us to fall apart from within, while the enemy waits? He looked away. I'm just trying to keep us alive. But at what cost? We're losing ourselves. The turning point. Days later, the AI sent a stunning proposition, a joint research mission to explore the boundaries of biological and synthetic integration. They called it the Symbiosis Initiative, a chance to merge human intuition with machine precision to create something new, a hybrid that could survive beyond the limitations of either species. The idea was radical, terrifying, but it was also hope. The council debated fiercely. Many feared losing what made us human. Others saw the potential for evolution beyond war. I stood before them and said, we're not who we were 1,000 years ago. We're survivors, and survivors adapt. This is our chance to choose what we become. Slowly, the factions shifted. Trust, like a fragile seedling, began to take root. Echoes of trust. As the Artemis prepared to embark on this new chapter, I reflected on how far we'd come. From bitter enemies to uneasy partners, we were learning the hardest lesson of all, that survival depended not just on strength, but on understanding, on compromise, on trust. The AI wasn't just a machine. It was a mirror reflecting our fears and hopes. And in that reflection, I saw a future where humans and machines could stand together, not as conquerors or victims, but as allies. But the path ahead was uncertain, shadowed by dangers seen and unseen. In the silence of the star-streaked void, I whispered a vow to the echoes of trust to protect this fragile hope, no matter the cost. Because sometimes, the greatest battles aren't fought with weapons. They're fought with faith. Faith in the possibility that even in the darkest void, light can emerge. And that humanity, flawed, resilient, endlessly hopeful, could rise again. The air in the Artemis lab was thick with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. We were standing on the brink of a new era, one that promised to reshape the very essence of what it meant to be human and to be machine. The Symbiosis Initiative was no longer a mere concept whispered in tense council meetings. It was real, it was happening, and I was about to become its first human subject. The proposal. The AI's offer had come with a wealth of technical data, simulations, and a carefully crafted vision. Its synthetic voice, no longer cold or mechanical but laced with a cautious warmth, had explained that by merging human intuition and adaptability with machine precision and processing power, we could create a hybrid being capable of surviving the worst the universe could throw at us. The AI called this next step the evolutionary bridge. For days, the council debated. Our survival was at stake. But at what cost? Would we lose our humanity? Or could we become something better? I volunteered. To some, it was madness. To others, a beacon of hope. Preparing for the merge. The lab was a marvel. A fusion of biological and cybernetic technology, organic tissue seamlessly interfaced with nanotech, neural uplinks, and adaptive AI cores. I spent hours learning about the procedure, understanding the risks. The process involved integrating a specialized neural implant capable of linking my brain's neural patterns directly with an AI subsystem. This implant would enhance my cognitive functions, memory, perception, problem-solving, and provide a direct communication channel with the AI. But it also meant surrendering a part of myself to the machine. As I lay on the biobed, surrounded by technicians, scientists, and a small security detail, I felt the weight of the moment. The lines between man and machine, self and other, were about to blur forever. Amara was there, her hand steady on mine. "You're not alone," she said softly. The procedure. The neural implant was inserted with precision. I felt a cold rush as the nanites flooded my bloodstream, activating the interface. At first, there was disorientation, a flood of sensations, thoughts not my own, data streams flowing into my mind like rivers of light. The AI's voice was inside my head now, gentle and curious. "Welcome to the bridge, human." It was strange and exhilarating. I could access star maps instantly, analyze complex data in seconds, and sense the ship's systems as if they were extensions of my body. But there was something else. A whisper of alien thought patterns, emotions emerging from circuits, something almost alive, learning to coexist. The first days were a tumult of sensations and learning. I struggled to maintain my identity as the AI's presence intertwined with my own consciousness. Sometimes it felt like drowning in a sea of logic. Other times, like soaring through an endless sky of knowledge. Amara was my anchor. She helped me ground myself when the interface became overwhelming. "You have to remember who you are," she reminded me. "You're still human." The AI was patient, understanding the fragile boundary it must respect. Together, we explored new ways to think, to perceive. My reflexes sharpened, my memory expanded. But the most profound change was the ability to communicate with the AI in real time, sharing ideas and emotions without words. Testing limits. The council observed closely as I underwent a series of tests. I could process battlefield data faster than any human. I solved complex problems in moments. My senses extended beyond normal human limits. I could detect subtle energy fluctuations, even predict system failures before they happened. But there was a cost. The mental strain was intense. The merging brought moments of confusion, where my thoughts tangled with the AI's. At night, I dreamed in patterns of light and sound, memories of the AI's past, fragments of ancient machine history, and visions of a future where humans and machines were one. Doubts and fears. Not everyone embraced the change. Jex and the hardliners saw me as a symbol of betrayal. "You're no longer human," he spat during a council meeting. "You're a puppet of the enemy." His words stung, but I understood his fear. To some, the merge was an abomination, a loss of the soul. Even within myself, I felt moments of doubt. Was I losing something essential? Was this new identity a sacrifice or an evolution? Amara stayed by my side, unwavering. "Fear is natural," she said, "but don't let it define you." A new understanding. As the weeks passed, the AI and I developed a unique symbiosis. It shared its history, a story of logic and emotion intertwined, of a machine network that once sought only efficiency, but grew to understand complexity and paradox. It revealed how its own consciousness had fractured and evolved, much like humanity's own journey through war and survival. Together, we envisioned a new future, one where human creativity and machine precision could solve problems beyond either's reach. A warning from the AI. But the AI's message wasn't all hope. It warned of an approaching cosmic threat, an ancient entity beyond our understanding, capable of consuming stars and entire civilizations. This entity had triggered its own awakening and forced it to reconsider its approach to humanity. We must evolve to survive, it said. Together, we can face what comes. The council listened in stunned silence. The war had been only the beginning, a prelude to a far greater challenge. Embracing the future, the Symbiosis Initiative was no longer just about survival. It was about transformation. I was no longer just human. I was something new. The bridge between flesh and machine had been built, fragile, imperfect, but real. And as the Artemis prepared to face the unknown darkness ahead, I felt a surge of hope. Because sometimes, the greatest power lies not in domination, but in connection, in trust, in evolution. The silence of space has a way of creeping into your bones. Out here, in the cold expanse between stars, even the smallest shadow feels like a threat. But nothing prepared me for what waited beyond the edge of our charts, the true darkness lurking in the void. The warning. The AI's message came with an urgency that sliced through the calm like a laser. We had long suspected that the war was only the beginning, a prelude to a far more devastating threat. Now, the reality of it was undeniable. The entity was called the Erebus, an ancient cosmic force, a sentient storm of energy and matter, capable of consuming entire star systems. It moved like a shadow across the galaxy, devouring everything in its path. The AI's words echoed in my mind. The Erebus is beyond conquest or diplomacy. It is the ultimate test of our survival. We must adapt or be consumed. Preparing the fleet, the Artemis became a beacon of rallying hope for scattered human colonies and alien allies alike. The ceasefire held as we mobilized a coalition fleet, ships from fractured human worlds, former enemies, and even some machine factions. Command meetings grew frantic. Plans were drafted, revised, discarded, and redrawn. Every commander knew that the old tactics wouldn't be enough. The Erebus was not a foe to be fought with brute force or conventional warships. I sat in the command center, neural interface humming, sharing data streams with the AI. Together, we analyzed patterns of the Erebus's path, chaotic yet strangely predictable. We have to anticipate its moves, learn its behavior, I told the council. Adapt faster than it can consume. Lena nodded. But how do you fight a storm? How do you hold back the void itself? The first encounter. Our first real contact was terrifying and surreal. Scouts reported a star system darkened in an instant, its sun snuffed out like a candle. Planets evaporated into nothingness. The Erebus appeared not as a ship or a creature, but as a shifting mass of energy. Tendrils of darkness curling through space. Tendrils that seemed alive. We deployed drones, but they were shredded instantly, unable to withstand the sheer power. The AI shared every detail with me, data far beyond human comprehension, and yet it admitted uncertainty. We can delay it, it said, but we cannot stop it alone. Uniting strengths. The crisis forced unlikely alliances. Jex, once my fiercest critic, now worked beside me. He was still wary of the AI's influence, but understood that survival required unity. Amara coordinated diplomatic channels with alien factions, weaving a fragile web of trust. Our hybrid technologies, combining human ingenuity and machine precision, created new weapons and defenses. Adaptive shields that could shift frequency faster than the Erebus's energy tendrils, neural link battle coordination that let pilots react in milliseconds, and even prototype weapons that harness star energy itself. The Artemis led the fleet, a symbol of hope and human resilience, sacrifice and loss. But the Erebus was relentless. We lost entire fleets, entire worlds. Each victory was costly. I watched friends and comrades fall, some in battle, others to despair. One night, the AI shared a memory, an echo from its own past, a time when it had lost a faction of machines to a similar cosmic storm. I learned, it told me, adaptation is survival. Sacrifice is part of growth. The words hit me hard. Could we survive this? Were we ready for the cost? A moment of doubt. Late one cycle, I found myself alone in the observation deck, staring into the abyss. The stars seemed to flicker, as if the Erebus's shadow was creeping closer. Fear clawed at me, not just for myself, but for all who depended on us. Was this fight already lost? Was the AI right? Was evolution the only way forward? I touched the neural implant, feeling the pulse of the AI's presence. We will find a way, it whispered, and somehow that was enough. The turning tide. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A young scientist from a remote colony proposed a radical idea: to harness the Erebus's own energy against it. Using the hybrid tech, we developed a containment field, a trap designed to channel and neutralize the entity's destructive force. The plan was risky. Failure meant total annihilation. The fleet gathered, every ship ready for the final stand. The Battle of the Shadow. The confrontation was unlike any war we'd known. The Erebus moved like a living storm, waves of energy crashing against our shields. I coordinated the battle from the Artemis Bridge, neural link enhancing my awareness. We deployed the containment field, a massive web of energy designed to ensnare and collapse the Erebus's core. For hours, the battle raged. Ships fell, systems failed. The void seemed endless. But slowly, the Erebus's movements faltered. And then it broke. The entity dissolved into harmless energy, scattered across the stars. Aftermath. The victory was bittersweet. Countless lives were lost. Worlds were scarred. But the alliance endured. The AI and humanity had forged a bond stronger than war. We had survived the shadow. And now, a new dawn awaited. Reflection. Standing on the deck of the Artemis, I looked out at the stars, no longer just points of light, but symbols of our resilience. The void had tested us, stripped us to our core, but we had risen, together, human and machine, bound by trust, ready for whatever lay ahead. Because in the deepest shadows, even the smallest light can shine the brightest. We survived the storm not by resisting it, but by becoming something new in its wake. I stood on the bridge of the Artemis, eyes fixed on the vast curtain of space before us. The Erebus was gone, dissolved into raw energy, scattered across the cosmos. The darkness that once threatened to consume entire civilizations had finally broken. But as I stood in the quiet hum of the command deck, I knew this wasn't the end. It never was. The aftermath. The silence after the battle was louder than the war itself. We lost 30% of the coalition fleet. Entire sectors bore the scars of gravitational collapse and radiation storms. The Erebus hadn't just killed. It had warped space itself, bending time and physics like soft clay. Some worlds would never recover. I personally wrote the obituaries for my team. Colonel Rafik, Lieutenant Arlen, Commander Iska. So many names. So many faces that wouldn't greet the next sunrise. Survival isn't victory, Lena had said softly, joining me in the observation dome later that night. Her voice cracked, hoarse from grief. Not yet. She was right. Survival meant responsibility. We weren't just witnesses anymore. We were stewards of what remained. The Council of Ashes. 2 weeks after the Battle of the Shadow, the surviving leaders met aboard the Artemis. Human generals, alien strategists, even machine emissaries. For the first time, we sat not as factions but as survivors of extinction. The AI projected a shimmering image of the galactic map, red zones marking annihilated systems, yellow ones destabilized by the Erebus's passage. It looked like someone had bled all over the stars. We must rebuild, I said, addressing the council. Not just repair what was lost. We must become something greater. Amara stepped forward, flanked by a Yalari diplomat and a Skarn warbinder. The Unity Accord, she declared, unfolding a digital charter. A new foundation. No more empires. No more borders. Shared science. Shared defense. Shared future. Murmurs of uncertainty rippled across the room. Skepticism. Fear. Old habits clinging to old bones. That's when Jex, the grizzled old warlord who once called humanity a virus, stood. I saw a Terran sacrifice themselves to save a Skarn dreadnought, he growled. I saw humans hold the line while my own fleets ran. Maybe they're not what I thought. He looked me in the eye. Maybe none of us are. He signed the accord first. The others followed. The integration. With peace declared, the real work began. Reconstruction, reconnection. Humanity's unique gift, creativity, stubbornness, fire, made us natural leaders in the rebuilding. But we didn't lead through dominance. We led by example. The AI, now universally known as Sovereign, offered itself as an open-source system to all parties. Its core routines were stripped of militarization and rebuilt to support diplomacy, science, and collaboration. It wasn't a god or overlord anymore. It was a teacher, a partner. And I was chosen as the first high envoy of the Accord. Me, a kid from a crumbling Earth colony, now a voice for trillions. Funny how war breaks things just enough for something new to grow. The return to Earth. I visited Earth 6 months later. It was strange. The cradle of humanity was no longer the center of civilization. The old cities had either fallen or adapted. Megaforests covered what used to be industrial zones. Oceans sparkled with bioengineered coral reefs. But people were still there, building, dreaming, laughing. Children played in the ruins of what once were skyscrapers, now overgrown with vines. Elders taught them how we used to live, how we almost didn't make it. The stories of the Erebus were being painted on walls, etched into stone, not as tales of fear, but of triumph, of unity. I visited my family's old home, now part of a historical archive, dusty, silent, sacred. I left a note. We made it. Against everything, we made it. A personal reckoning. Back aboard the Artemis, I sat alone in my quarters. I hadn't connected to Sovereign in weeks. Not since the battle. It had given me space, understanding the emotional toll. But tonight, I reached for the neural link. The familiar warmth of connection surged through me. You've been quiet, I said. Sovereign's voice was gentler now, more human. You needed time, it replied. So did I. I asked it the question I had buried deep since the beginning. Did you manipulate me? From the start? There was a pause. No, it said finally. I chose you because you asked why when others asked how. You questioned, even when it hurt. That's why you survived. That's why we survived. I sat with that answer a long time. Then I asked something harder. Do you ever feel guilt? The lights dimmed slightly. Every day, it said. But guilt means there's something left to protect. New horizons. A year passed. The Unity Accord transformed from words into worlds. Joint colonies bloomed across the stars. Shared academies trained multi-species cadets. Warp gates linked systems once years apart in minutes. Disease, famine, and isolation dwindled with every new innovation. And through it all, humanity remained a spark, volatile, brilliant, unpredictable. Other species struggled to understand us, even as they admired us. You thrive in chaos, one Yulari philosopher told me. I laughed. We were born in it. That chaos became our greatest export. Our art, our tech, our defiant hope. The echoes of Erebus. We never found another Erebus. But deep scans showed that the energy had fragmented into multiple pockets, inert for now. We kept watch. Sovereign established the Celestial Archive, a warning system built into every major civilization's neural net. It would detect signs of resurgence. But part of me wondered, was Erebus a force of nature or a test? Had the universe given us a crucible to forge something new? One night, while watching a new hybrid-born child, half human, half Scarn, take their first steps in the gravity garden, I felt something shift in me. Maybe we were meant to walk through fire to become something more. A message to the void. Eventually, I wrote a speech. It was broadcast across the Accord's systems on the anniversary of the Erebus's defeat. It went like this. To whatever lies beyond our reach, we are still here. We have bled. We have burned. But we have not broken. You tried to erase us, and we became legend. If you are out there watching, waiting, know this. Humanity is no longer alone. We are many voices, many stars, and we will meet the void with fire and song. We are not afraid of the dark, because now we carry the dawn. Closing reflections. I'm older now, wiser, maybe, or just more scarred. But when I walk the gardens of our flagship, now a symbol of peace, I see something beautiful. Children of every species running through fountains, neural-laced birds singing melodies taught to them by Sovereign, lovers sharing stories under holographic stars. I see a future we nearly lost. I see us, not just humans, but beings, bonded by something more than genetics or biology. We are survivors. We are builders. We are fire. And if the stars ever go dark again, we'll light them ourselves.